If you're looking at us, then that means it's Friday. And you know what that means. Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Egos. I believe this is episode number 136, if I'm not mistaken. It is October 7th, 2022, and we are live to tape. My name's Patrick. Welcome to the show. I am joined, as I am each and every week, by my best friend Brian, because let's be honest, like the legendary Timberland, along with Sir Elton John once said, it's a regular two-man show. Buddy, how's it going?
It's going. Ready to get silly tonight because the topic of conversation is comedic wrestlers.
Yes.
And we're ready to let it rip on that.
We might be having a special guest join us. We have been in talks with a comedian from across the pond over in Birmingham, England, not Birmingham like the city in Alabama that I grew up near, Birmingham, England, because they speak more proper than my stupid southern ass does. Katie Hinken might be joining us tonight. We're having some communication issues. So if we get that sorted out while we're recording, well, we'll just cross that bridge when we get there. A couple things that have happened in the world of wrestling over the last week that we at least need to acknowledge. Number one, of course, the tragic passing of WWE Tough Enough winner Sarah Lee. Extremely tragic. Also the brouhaha that happened backstage at AEW Dynamite between Andrade and Sammy Guevara. We're not going to talk about them tonight. Mainly because, number one, this is a show about comedy, and I don't feel that it's in good form to talk about really serious matters and then start talking about Santino Marella. I don't think it's appropriate. The only other topic I want to discuss, and I'm kind of springing this one on B, but he'll be ready for this one. We are one day away from WWE Extreme Rules. Pretty loaded card, but I don't give two craps about the card as far as this discussion tonight. I have two words for you that I want to talk about. White Rabbit. I'm going to ask you one question, yes or no, B. Is it Bray Wyatt?
I'm going to say yes because, excuse my cough. I don't think it makes sense to be anybody else. I can't think of anybody else who has the mind and skill set to pull this off and orchestrate this the way this has been orchestrated. Somebody on Twitter had a listing of all the clues going back, I don't know, this has been a month now, a month plus.
Yeah.
And how they all point to Bray.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll further qualify my answer by saying I don't think you're going to see any previous incarnation of him either. Because been there, done that, got the t-shirt kind of thing.
I keep hearing allusions toward what he's named himself on Twitter, Wyatt 6, meaning maybe a quote-unquote a new incarnation of the Wyatt family. I'm hearing names getting thrown around that make a whole lot of sense. Joe Gacy, Alexa Bliss, Cross and Scarlett.
Bo Dallas.
I have not heard that one. Oh, good sweet Lord. Bringing his own brother.
I mean, he's found a new direction to take the character. You've got a saying on this show that where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yes.
And there's too much smoke here for there not to be a fire.
Agreed.
To the point where if the debut happens tomorrow night and it's anybody else,
it's going to be a riot.
It's going to be a profound disappointment despite who the guy or gal is. I mean, I'm not saying that, kudos to them for coming up with all this stuff.
It's going to be such a disappointment that it's going to fail instantly. Mm-hmm. It's going to be like Roman winning the Royal Rumble and having The Rock there to try and give him the rub, but the fans in Philly are still booing the crap out of him because it wasn't Daniel Bryan.
Right.
This is
Or it's
literally going to
Emelina.
be the same thing.
Or it's an Emelina situation where nobody cares.
God, that would be even worse.
Yeah.
Even worse. I will be watching tomorrow night. I will be looking very forward to it. And if you've watched this show in the 3 years that we have been doing this thing, you guys know that my biggest mark out ever on this show was Firefly Funhouse / The Fiend Bray Wyatt. Brian hated it at first, and I'm literally just gushing over this. I find Bray Wyatt to be an absolute genius. I think he is the single most creative entity that's ever been a part of professional wrestling. And holy crap, I hope, to quote Morpheus from The Matrix, I hope we're about to find just how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Because to be fair, if you remember, I wasn't on board with it at first. And the only way I did get on board with it was when it started getting darker. Because at the beginning, it was very, happy, happy, joy, joy, and a send up of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't get it.
Yeah. And I'm over here telling you, I'm like, it's going to take a turn.
And when it did take a turn is when
Yep.
he had me hooked. And I was just like, oh my God, like every week we were talking about, oh my God, here's what he talked about now.
Yeah, we led with the show. We led the show every week with the latest segment, and it was just, oh, this is great.
And it culminated with the biggest character assassination in the history of wrestling.
Yeah.
With the Firefly Funhouse match with Cena.
God, I honestly and truly, I still think that was a piece of creative genius.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that with all praise.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm not saying it like it was terrible. I mean, I remember sitting there thinking, what am I watching?
Right. And you're brilliant. Right, as far as the character assassination, I'm like, wait a minute, but you're right, because they essentially assassinated the character of John Cena.
Yeah.
Because think about this.
Along with some other people, of course.
Yeah. Ever since then, Cena's appearances have been very sporadic. That was essentially John Cena's, from a long-standing standpoint in WWE, that was his send-off. We'll get another run with him when it's, about time to call it quits, but that'll be about it. So let's go ahead and get to the funny. So our boy KD came up with this idea, and this is why we're really hoping that he joins us tonight. And hopefully we can connect, because KD is an accomplished comedian over in the UK, and he thought, hey, I'm a comedian. I think this would be a great topic for us to jump on my first night. He's a comedian. He loves wrestling. Boom. Because there have been, even long before Brian and I were existing on this earth, there's been comedic wrestlers. There's been comedic moments. And no matter how time changes, no matter how the business evolves, sorry, I have an itch and I'm moving my glasses around. By the way, something I forgot to mention earlier, thank you guys so much for watching this on YouTube or checking us out on any of our podcasting platforms. Now, hear them all out, boys and girls.
Because they continue to grow by the week, by the way.
Yes, they continue to grow. Anchor, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, and our new one, Brian.
iHeartRadio.
Exactly.
A lot of my friends at work are excited about that one, because I guess that the people that listen to podcasts, that's the app they use, and I'm like, well, guess what? We're on it now, so there's no.
We are now on iHeartRadio. Obviously, the name's the same. Wrestling with Egos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, click the bell for the notifications if you're watching us on the YouTubes, and if you're listening to our dulcet sounds of our voices, please leave a 5-star review. Helps us stay active and maybe get a little bit, ears and eyes on product, because that's what it's all about, boys and girls.
That is what it's
We know
all.
we're not going to hit 500 by the end of the year, but maybe we can hit 100. So let me start off by asking you this question, B. When I say comedic wrestler, first person that comes to your mind, go.
Well, the first person that comes into my head are people that I like to watch now. So and the two people that I gravitate towards are Danhausen and Orange Cassidy.
To me, currently, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Because, especially now in WWE, they've taken a hard right turn away from the comedy.
Because let's face it, it's hard to do. And for the uninitiated, this goes back to the origins of wrestling. It was the carnival circuit.
Right.
And, I look at it now, like if every match that, if we tune into a Raw or we watch a WrestleMania and every match is aspiring to be a Dave Meltzer 5-star classic, they're going to fall flat. You need that variety. The same way when you go and watch your kid's talent show at school. You've got dancing, and you've got people playing the piano, and you've got people telling jokes, and you've got people doing this and that. It's the same thing with comedic wrestlers. If you find a niche doing that sort of thing, taking the pratfall like Bobby the Brain Heenan used to do, God bless his soul. Danhausen has carved out a niche for himself on the independent scene, and now he's got a contract for himself in AEW, popping up here and there, and I'm gonna curse you, and the fans love it. I've seen a match. He was in a mall, wrestling Orange Cassidy in a mall. This is like 5 years ago. There was like 60 people in the mall, and they were hanging on every move. The match was like a 9-minute match, but it was like high theater. It's like a palate cleanser. That's why you need. And when I was a kid, I didn't understand that. So you're telling me comedic wrestlers now? I think Danhausen. The first one that I can ever remember seeing were the Bushwhackers, because that's the era that I started watching wrestling every week. And I remember seeing the Bushwhackers and thinking, why are they licking people their heads and stuff like that? And I didn't get it at the time. I mean, I get it now, but I didn't get it back then.
I think, my first memory of comedic wrestlers or comedic talent in wrestling was, as you just mentioned, the legend himself, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Bobby Heenan was funny in the ring. He was funny as a manager. He was funny taking bumps for his guys. And then there was the extra added aspect of Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. Number one, I defy you. Was it SummerSlam in the Garden with Perfect and Bret Hart? Had Virgil and $1 Million Man for the $1 Million title, the match made in heaven, the match made in hell. Was that 91 or 92?
91.
Okay. I defy
you. Because 92 was in Wembley, don't forget.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I defy you to go back and watch SummerSlam 91. Ignore all the matches. Just listen to the back and forth between Bobby Heenan and Rowdy Roddy Piper. If you don't smile, you have no soul. Furthermore, if you can sit through Bobby Heenan's Hall of Fame induction and not laugh, there is no hope for you. You are the most miserable human being on this planet.
That is the 39th time on Wrestling with Egos that Patrick has referenced the Bobby the Brain Heenan Hall of Fame induction speech. 39 for those of you scoring at home.
I'm surprised at that. It's not though. It's that low. I mean, for me, that is my go-to. Like, okay, I need something to cheer me up. Yeah. That is my go-to.
Anyone that can make Ric Flair laugh that hard. That's the part I will never forget. Is Ric Flair is like turning red. 67 shades of red and doubled over on the stage. And I'm like, you're making Ric Flair blush, Bubba.
I'm on the road with Larry Flint.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the cool thing about all of this, is because while wrestling has had its fair share of amazing talent, whether it be captivating performers like a Hogan or a Rock or someone like that, or someone that can, paint you an absolute Rembrandt of a match in, say, a Savage, a Brett, a Shawn, an FTR, an Omega. Um, we have all of that, but having these comedic wrestlers, like you said, yeah, it's a breath of fresh air, it's a change of pace, but it's also that extra added nuance to where, okay, we're talking about kicking people's asses, but now we're going to have this. In the last, we'll call it the last, this last era, we'll say that the new era of wrestling started 3 years ago with the launch of Dynamite. In the previous era, who's someone that stands out?
Are you talking like from 2000 to
3 years ago? From
3
2000
years
to 3
ago?
years ago.
The Lovebird and I were actually having this conversation. She goes, "What are you guys going to talk about, this week on the show?" And I mentioned how our new friend KD had brought up the comedic wrestlers. And she goes, "Oh, like Santino Marella?" I cannot think, and this was that ruthless aggression era. The comedy wasn't as prevalent because, Stone Cold was on his way out, Kurt Angle was on his way out, The Rock was on his way out. These were all people that augmented their in-ring game with the comedy. And I bet you're surprised it took me this long to mention The Rock, because he definitely had a penchant for that. But Santino,
we will get to Rock and Austin in a moment. We're
okay,
gonna get to them. Trust me, boys and girls.
the thing about Santino is he's the quintessential example of a guy who embraced the fact that this is what I need to do to get over. I'm gonna wear the singlet with the cobra on it, and I'm gonna stuff the cobra down my pants, and I'm gonna have the unibrow, and I'm gonna speak with the big accent, and I'm gonna all that kind of stuff, and I'm gonna lapse into other character work. Because what he was a detective, he was trying to figure out who the Raw general manager was or something like that. That one time with Vladimir Kozlov and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he carved out a long career for himself, almost a decade, I think.
Yeah.
Doing stuff like that. But then there was just enough in-ring stuff, because that Elimination Chamber match, it came down to him and Daniel Bryan, as I recall.
Yes.
And Santino got a 2 7/8 pinfall on Daniel Bryan that made me question, like, where are you going here?
Right.
But it was still, it's stuff like that, those moments like that. But Santino, partially for the fact that the Lovebird brought it up, but also for the fact that, hey, she's right. I mean, Santino leaned into it, and leaned into it hard.
Santino leaned into it very hard. Another person in the last age of wrestling that I always found hysterical, and it also bled into this current era because of the 24/7 title. But R-Truth. R-Truth
Can't
is a
believe I
freaking.
forgot about him.
R-Truth is a national treasure, man. I mean, here's the sad thing. You do realize that R-Truth was on the very first TNA show, right?
I know he was in TNA, yeah.
Yeah,
And
he was a part of the launch. R-Truth is a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. If you go back and look at pictures of him as NWA World Heavyweight Champion and a picture of him now, there is no difference. The man has not aged. Holy crap. But for me, like
10 years ago, I would have thought the notion of R-Truth as a Hall of Famer would have been no way in hell.
Oh,
but how can you not? He's, yeah.
R-Truth is about as lock, stock, and barrel of a Hall of Famer as Albert Pujols is for Cooperstown 5 years from now. I mean,
We just won't mention K-Quick. when we do his Hall of Fame ceremony.
No,
We'll
no.
pretend that never happened.
Oh no, no, we totally can. And then R-Truth will do the whole "my bad" thing, which
Yeah.
I thought that was the one R-Truth thing that popped me to no end was the Royal Rumble when he came down to the ring with a ladder.
That's not where I thought you were going. Keep going.
Came down to the ring with a ladder in the middle of the Royal Rumble and climbed up the flipping ladder thinking it was Money in the Bank, reaching for it and like, it was at that moment he knew he messed up.
My R-Truth moment was when he broke Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
I forget how many years ago this was. I want to say it was either 18 or 19 or something like that. He came out and Lesnar like broke character.
Yeah, because he was talking about, blah blah, cutting this really aggressive "I want to fight you" promo, and then he calls out Paul Heyman. And when he says Paul Heyman's name, Lesnar's face just changes, and you're now looking at him. You're now looking at a 290-pound monster that's trying not to laugh. He is pulling a Jimmy Fallon on SNL.
Yep. I mean, Truth. He's another guy who just understands this is the role, that the purpose that I serve, and I'm going to lean into it.
And his timing, good God, his timing.
I'll go back a little bit further there. I'll go back to oh God, what do we what era are we calling it? Oh, the Attitude Era. I mean, you got Al Snow.
See, Al Snow never really did much for me. I mean, it was that was okay. It was funny.
Or do you think it was more the gimmick that he, with the head and everything, and that really wasn't funny? Like he was almost trying too hard.
Yeah. It was an ECW creation that worked in ECW. In my opinion, Al Snow and Head did not work in WWE. I mean, it gave Jerry Lawler the opportunity to say somebody's going to get ahead. That was about it.
And
Al
stick
Snow,
a bottle of shampoo in the bottom of it so we could pin it.
Right.
That one match. That was terrible.
Yeah. To me, that was about as funny as Vince and Shane McMahon versus Shawn Michaels and God.
On the funny scale, that's down here.
More like there. Moving on. Let's rewind and talk about the guy over your left shoulder and his greatest rival, Stone Cold Steve Austin. First off, The Rock. One of the funniest, consistently funny promos ever. Whether he was a heel or a face or a heel again as Hollywood Rock, funny as hell. I mean, I've always criticized The Rock for it always being the same crap in every promo. Get all of the shtick in. But in between the shtick would be those golden moments where it's just like, oh my God. The two that kill me always. Number one, the Hurricane. Hey, it's nothing. He knows you. And then the prayer to God as
I was
Billy
hoping you
Gunn.
would bring that up.
Oh my God.
That was the one promo of his that I kept coming back to. Like I don't pop for any other promo of his as much as that one.
I just thought of another one that pops me more than that.
The one you gave me for promo battle?
No. Oh, I did not give you this one for promo battle. Rock concert singing "Wonderful Tonight" to Vicky Guerrero.
Oh, that one. I mean, and somebody could argue, oh well, he was supposed to put Billy Gunn over, that kind of thing. Billy Gunn was at that point, I think, in my opinion, better cast as a supporting player in a faction
Oh yeah.
as opposed to the workhorse, the next big thing, the star, because there were too many guys to climb over at that point.
Billy Gunn in just about any other era other than the Attitude Era could have been massive. The problem is he was a really good wrestler in an era of all-time great after all-time great after all-time great. Because I mean, he had Hunter, Shawn, Rock, Austin, Angle, all there at the same time.
Yep.
Holy crap!
It's okay though. Don't weep for Billy Gunn because he's over now.
Scissor me, daddy ass. My God. Okay, time. Let's talk about those guys. This past Wednesday, that National Scissoring Day segment, my mom is asking me about this. Like, what is this? And why am I laughing as hard as I am? I'm like, because it's funny.
And I'll tell you something else about that. I'm way more into Anthony Bowens now than I ever was before. Because that man is accomplishing a whole lot of nuanced stuff. When you get past the bluster and everything else, he's got some important things to say about getting along with everybody else and tolerance and it doesn't matter if I'm this, or it doesn't matter if I'm that. It doesn't matter if you're this or that.
Dude, say it, because he will flat out say it. Doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. I mean, he is an openly gay man, and he completely goes all in on acceptance. Yep. I mean, and he was not shy about that during that one part. Ever since I found out that he was openly gay, and he was very upfront about it, and realizing just by the way he carried himself, and he talked about not wanting other people to feel as an outcast, whether or not it's about your sexuality or if it's about your mental health or whatever else. I'm realizing, like, this is beyond a good dude. I mean, this is somebody that I'm like, okay,
is trying to help out his fellow man.
Right. And I'm over here and I'm literally looking at the guy thinking, yeah, I want this kid to succeed. And I'm very glad that the Acclaim are getting the title run that they deserve. Yes. I love him as faces though. By the way, Max Caster doing the rap insult 30 times better than John Cena ever could be.
Yeah.
It's so creative.
And I think Caster's not afraid to go places that you think he shouldn't go. Or let me rephrase that. Caster's not afraid to go places that maybe I think he shouldn't go. You might be all for it and think, okay, everything's fair game. Some of the stuff he's said over the past year has been sort of incendiary, and I guess that's the point.
Yeah. He gets attention. Yeah. But
going back to the promo from God, I mean, just everything that I think that was The Rock at his most cocksure, if I can use that word.
Yes.
Just the mannerisms with the sweeping of the arms and the way he was holding the microphone and the camera angle and just the assuredness, and I'm delivering these lines and here we go. Oh dear God, I could do the whole thing verbatim right now. I'm not going to, but
yes, Bobby, my name's Billy. It doesn't matter what your name is.
Everybody still thinks that I absolutely suck, and it's. And you talked before about the greatest hits. Rock's one of the few people that can get away with that because we all know the greatest hits, and we can't help ourselves, even if we have Rock fatigue, which a lot of my friends have Rock fatigue because I will never have Rock fatigue. You still sing along with the greatest hits. You go see, the Backstreet Boys and they in concert, and they sing "I Want It That Way." You're going to sing along with them. You go see the Rolling Stones in concert and they do "Brown Sugar." You're going to sing along with them.
I'm about to say, dude, we're talking about bands and greatest hits and going to see them in concert, and the first band you break out is Backstreet Boys. Not the
Sorry.
Stones, not Kiss, not AC/DC, not anyone like
It's
that.
just very stream
Freaking
of
Backstreet
consciousness. I
Boys.
don't have notes prepared for tonight. It's just very stream of consciousness. I'm trying to be loose, trying to keep it loose, and you're gonna get Backstreet Boys if I keep it loose.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you name 5 AC/DC songs?
Yes. Dirty
Prove it.
Deeds. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Oh boy. Dirty Deeds, Long Way to the Top. Thunderstruck, Hell's Bells, which is our entrance music because we're the NXT Tag Team Champions, by the way. And You Shook Me All Night Long. Whew.
I'm about to say, okay.
Can I have a scotch and soda, please? Because
I'm about to say, so help me God, if you don't mention either Shook Me All Night Long or Back in Black or Highway to Hell, we're going to have problems.
well, you know me, I prefer the deep cuts versus the.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's why Hell's Bells is my deep cut for AC/DC.
Oh, yeah. And for the record, no, our entrance theme is For Those About to Rock.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's our entrance theme.
We could alternate. For the angle where, you know, the up and comers like beat us down and injure one of us, and then we rehab and come back, and then we're gonna get our titles back, then Hell's Bells is the entrance music.
No, that's Mama Said Knock You Out by LL Cool J.
Listen
Don't
to us
call it a comeback.
plan
I've been
the
here
next
for
2 years of TV. You gotta love it.
Shoot. Stone Cold
But
Steve
Rock,
Austin.
it didn't matter with Rock. Like I could go through the litany of opponents that he castrated on the microphone.
God.
You know, he went toe to toe with
Nobody was
the Undertaker.
safe.
He went toe to toe with Triple H all the time. I mean, even that promo that the two of them had, was it 2016 or 17, where they were backstage and Triple H was in the suit and Stephanie was back and The Rock comes in and they have the ceremony and think, oh my God, we're going to get Rock and Triple H in Mania. We didn't. Even that was intense, but there was also humor injected into it. And, you know, Triple H was never that good with the humor unless it was sophomore pranks, like, you know, sophomore class field trip, like JR used to say all the time when they would come out. But The Rock just, and I remember this because I watched, you know, the Just Bring It home video ad nauseum. It stemmed from him, you know, talking trash as a kid.
Right.
A lot of that stuff came from like the barber's chair in high school and this, and he just kind of took the ball and ran with it. You know, I think that's where, if you smell what The Rock is cooking came from, was just talking trash at the barbershop.
Well, we also keep in mind, he, as a collegiate football player, was surrounded by trash talking dogs.
Warren Sapp.
Exactly. The QB killer himself. Put on a jersey. Put on a jersey. Greatest retirement in the history of professional sports, by the way. Posted on his website, black background, I'm done. And his signature. That was it. I want to talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin had some funny moments during his meteoric run. The beer bath, the Zamboni, the concrete in the Corvette, stuff like that. But what I love most about the comedic side of Stone Cold Steve Austin was after the neck injury and after WrestleMania 17 when he turned heel.
Because he was nursing something and he had to do that out of necessity. He had to be on TV every week.
Mm-hmm.
And that was more of a necessity, where him and Kurt Angle also was injured. And the two of them are going back and forth, but that's what how are we going to fill this segment? Well, we got to be funny with each other.
The one I always go to, and I remember because I was there. What? It was a show in Birmingham. It's Deborah.
He's almost like RJ's here, but
I know.
You know, he's not.
It was Deborah, Austin, and McMahon in McMahon's office. And Austin breaks out the guitar, and I literally looked at my friends that I'm with, and I said, "So help me God, if this sumbitch starts breaking out Kumbaya,"
and
I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" the fact that that's the first thing he did, I'm like, that's so funny. Unfortunately,
Around that same time, Deborah had made a plate of cookies.
yes.
Are you Betty Crocker? Get these cookies out of here. You know, so and I'll never forget that. Are you Betty Crocker? And then that raspy delivery of his. It's just it's gold.
Yeah. Let's go forward in the time machine.
Well, I actually want to go backwards if that's possible.
Feel free.
I mentioned the Bushwhackers. I had a hard time because I wasn't watching when I was in the womb, trying to think, and I'm sure you're going to mention some names, and I'll be like, oh, duh. But I'm trying to remember like the Territory era, like 70s and stuff like that, and even back to the 60s, you know, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers and stuff, you know, that kind of era and all that. And I couldn't think of any.
The comedic stuff and the territories really wasn't that big of a thing. I mean, you had your comedic stuff was more of your novelty acts, your you know, little people wrestling.
No.
Yeah, stuff like that. I know.
Getting kind of hot in here, guys.
Right. I mean, that's where you got your quote unquote comedy elements, because you'd have one wrestler kick out of a pin and he would go up and the referee would catch him in his arms.
Here's a name for you.
Then throw him back onto the wrestler and then just rinse and repeat 4 or 5 times, because that was funny kind of slapstick.
It depends if this kind of comedy is your bag, but would you consider Andy Kaufman a comedic wrestler?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was a great comedian. I think for me though, he was trying and succeeded at being a heel as opposed to being a comedian.
Yeah.
But you could see the comedy in what he was doing, even though the intention was to incite anger.
Yeah.
Speaking, I want to fast forward, and
okay, that's the hole in the timeline for me, right. Anyway. Is before all this.
I wanted to go here on the timeline, but now we're going to go here a lot more closer to now, because you mentioned a comedian. I think we have to discuss what we saw this year at WrestleMania, Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville.
See, I go back and do you want to discuss Sami or do you want to discuss Johnny Knoxville?
I want to discuss the whole thing, because the entire thing, I look at this match as this. That match was intended to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And if both participants and all the outside extracurricular activities, if you have to have everybody go all in on that, or it doesn't work.
Here's the thing with Sami.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to take this 2 different ways. I go back and forth with Sami because I feel like deep down inside he wants to be the workhorse 5-star guy. You know, we talked about the legendary night thing with Cesaro a couple of weeks ago and how brilliant that was. And, you know, the wonderful matches he has every time he gets the opportunity. I wonder if he didn't use that as, I need to get noticed somehow, so fine, I'll take this spot. And I wonder if that didn't get people's attention like Paul Heyman and the Bloodline. Or did that just happen organically and he started weaseling his way in? Because that has been high drama too.
Oh, it's been
the way he's ingratiated himself. Like the segment a couple of weeks ago where Roman finally told him, why are you wearing a Bloodline shirt, dude? You need to take that off. And then, you know, you think, okay, well, here he's going to get his ass whipped. But instead, you know, Jay rips the shirt off of him, leaving him like, you know, with a bare torso. And then Roman says, I don't ever want to see you wear that shirt again because I got a new shirt for you. And the way he reacted to getting the honorary Oosh shirt, my heart grew 3 sizes for him that day.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
and
it's just a case of Sammy embracing the role, understanding what he's there to do. And he's being built into such an endearing babyface because of this.
right. Sammy recently on the Broken Skull Sessions with Steve Austin alluded to the fact that, yeah, he knows he can be, as you put it, 5-star Dave Meltzer guy, but he also embraces this side of what he can do, because this is not something that he's really been able to do in the past. Even though he was El Generico in Ring of Honor, you know, El Generico is best known for the blood feud he had with Kevin Steen, not necessarily any of the comedic stuff that he did, even though he was funny.
For the 3rd time on this show, I'm about to say that I really need to go back and look for some of those matches,
Oh,
because
you do.
it's high time that I
Ladder
dabbled in
War.
that.
Ladder War. Enough said.
Okay.
And it's not like it's not a bloodletting match by any stretch of the imagination, but just the intensity, it gets a little cringy, because it's just like, ooh, that had to hurt.
I can sort of imagine, but I need to go watch it.
Yeah.
So. I'll see you later. I'm going to go watch it. Just kidding.
Right. We cannot do this show, this particular show, without talking about one specific act, because in my opinion, in the modern era of wrestling, and I'm going to say attitude era, modern being attitude era and beyond, nobody has done comedy better than the New Day.
I'm ashamed that they didn't pop right into my head.
They popped into my head right off the bat, and I was like, no, I am saving that one for as long as I can. And we're about 40 minutes into it, so yeah, about that time. But these guys got over with rainbows and unicorns
And pancakes.
and New Day Rocks and trombones. You are talking some of the most ridiculous crap. Oh, don't forget Bootios.
Right. And a time machine.
And a time machine, yes. And so many other things. My God. But this was an act that has been funny, has been very serious, has had some serious fights. I mean, not just like matches. We're talking like those 3 guys had gone to war with people across the ring, and it has been glorious. And also responsible for 2 of the 3 being some of the most heartstring tugging moments in the last 10 years of wrestling, with both Kofi Mania and then last year Big E cashing in Money in the Bank to beat Lashley and become WWE champion. The New Day have done so many things in 10 years. No, it hasn't even been 10 years.
I feel like it's been about 8.
Yeah, because they started at WrestleMania 32.
Yeah, it was right after that, I think, or it was right around that time where, Kofi and Big E were tag teaming and they lost, and then Woods comes out in that ridiculous suit, and
they formed in between 31 and 32. But 32, they had already turned face, and that's when because that was in Dallas, and that's when they came out of the big old gigantic box of Bootios.
Yeah.
This is an act that has done everything. And there's so many things you can point at with them. The cosplay, the Um,
The multi-platform reach
yes,
that they have,
yes.
the crossover appeal that they have.
The pop culture references in all of their gear, not just cosplaying stuff where they've done Dragon Ball Z and Final Fantasy and stuff like that, but just like, you know,
But Black Lives Matter, you know, they had ring gear for that, and you know, they've had
ring gear for that. They've had Golden Girls themed ring gear. They've had Seinfeld themed ring gear. They had ring gear in recognition of the 20th anniversary of the Fugees' record The Score. Great album,
up,
by
up,
the
down,
way.
down ring gear, of course.
Huh?
They've got up, up, down, down ring gear.
Yes, up, up, down, down ring gear. And Brody Lee.
Yes.
This is an act that has, it's a comedy act that did the one thing, that didn't do the one thing that most comedy acts in wrestling do. They never got stale. They still are not stale.
And they're also defying convention because the WWE going to WWE, well, we got to break you up and you're going to fight each other. They really haven't. I mean, yes, they've all gone off for their own aspirations. You know, Big E and Kofi have been champ, and Woods won King of the Ring, and all that stuff. And I still wonder if Woods will get a run with a title at some point. That would only be fair, and it would be most deserving.
Hell, any title at some point. You know, put the U.S. or the Intercontinental title on him. I mean, I'm fine with that. I just realized I'm gonna have to go back and watch SmackDown because I forgot we had Sheamus and Gunther again for the Intercontinental title tonight. First guy to die loses. But for me, I agree with you in the fact that those change of pace things. Let me ask you this: what comedically, what's more rewarding to you? Having a really funny segment between random wrestler A and random wrestler B, like for example, when AJ and Dolph Ziggler were having their cute little romantic ceremony, whatever, in the ring, and then Cena dumped crap on them. You know, would you rather have something like that, or would you rather have an act that's consistently funny? For example, an Orange Cassidy, a Danhausen, a New Day, a Santino.
I like the unexpected comedy that comes from some people. Like Randy Orton, for example, has had some funny moments over the years, whether they were intentional or not.
Most of his are accidental, though.
Right, when he dumped the one Singh brother on the announce table and it didn't go the right way, and then he, you know, that kind of thing. But I think I appreciate it a little more when I know what's coming. Like, you know, because another example, it took me a while to jump on board with Orange Cassidy, and then he had his match with Pac early on in 2020, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then he had the match with Kenny Omega the next week, and I'm like, oh, geez, wait a minute, you know.
Keep talking for a minute.
But it's just, I tend to appreciate a little more when I know what's coming, you know, because again, you have a role to fulfill, and those people that have carved out that niche, you know, okay, well, here comes the comedy segment. I hope it's funny. And then sometimes by extension, other wrestlers, you know, have funny moments when they're dealing with that wrestler. You know, John Cena is a perfect example. You know, John Cena had some humorous moments too, but you wouldn't necessarily consider him a comedy type act. But it's I think it's funnier when you see it coming, and you know what to expect. You know, okay, Danhausen's out there, something humorous is about to happen. So for me, I think it's funnier when I know what's coming. Is the bottom line.
I agree with you on that. For me, I look at comedy the same way I would look at, we talked about him earlier, the Firefly Funhouse. I know, okay, Firefly Funhouse segment's coming up. Okay, I'm going to watch this because I am going to be very entertained. This is something I want to see. I expect X, Y. I expect X, Y, and Z, and then I also expect the unexpected. New Day comes out at their absolute height, and they're not wrestling, but they're just cutting a promo in the middle of the ring. Okay, we're gonna get something silly. We're gonna get something. We're gonna get something absolutely magical out of this. Bobby Heenan back in the 80s and 90s. Heenan and Monsoon, my God, that was absolutely just classic stuff. Probably some of the best back and forth comedy in the history of wrestling.
And correct me if I'm wrong, was most of that just natural, unrehearsed? They didn't
Uh-huh.
spend a lot of time like, okay, you're going to say this and I'm going to say that. It was spontaneous.
It was Heenan going off the cuff and Monsoon reacting. That's
Reminds you of
all it
anyone,
was.
Wrestling with Egos listeners? I wonder who that might remind you of. Somebody going off the cuff and and somebody else reacting. Oh my word.
Like, you mean like that?
Yeah, just like that. Oh my, look at the time. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, and for the record, I've been doing this to Brian longer than the show's been going on.
Facts.
Yes, very
Decade
much
plus.
facts. Yeah, you realize we're coming up on 10 years?
Oh, it's been shorter than that? I thought it was longer than that. No, you're
No.
probably right.
I transferred to Store 11 in 2013.
Okay, then crammed a lot into a decade, haven't we?
Yeah. We have definitely crammed a lot into a decade.
Scrolling across the bottom of the screen for our YouTube listeners or watchers are all the things that we've crammed into 9 years.
No, because a lot of that is some
Not
of my
suitable
own
for print?
huh?
Not suitable for print?
Not suitable for print, and also a lot of my own personal failings. So no, I'm not putting that on a graphic.
Stay tuned next week for some Wrestling with Egos bonus content where we have the laundry list of things that we've crammed into 9 years.
You do realize now that I've moved, I'm about 20 minutes from you. I know where you live. This will be called a justified. This could be construed as a justifiable homicide.
Hashtag empty promises. Hashtag heard it all before.
Oh, just wait.
Hashtag go ahead and pick up those keys. I don't care.
And too late. I'm too damn lazy to drive tonight, dude. It's 11:30. No.
Yep.
I'm not getting. No, hell no. I'm not getting. One, it's too
late. And
it's
raining. So
yeah. One is too late. Two, it's raining. Three, it's cold. No. Hell no.
Strategy, ladies and gentlemen. That's when you know.
Yeah. See, that's when he knows he can talk crap. I'm like, okay, Patrick's too lazy. It's too late. He's not going to get out. He doesn't do well in the cold, and he defines the cold as anything below 40.
Plus, he's got a piece of apple pie in the refrigerator waiting on him for after we're done. He's gonna pound that.
Actually, no, I don't. But God, that does sound good.
Well, it's almost apple pie bacon time at the homestead here because we went apple picking last weekend. So
well, apple pie season is all the time in my book. But moving on. So we've had a lot of weddings in wrestling.
See,
thank you. I was literally going to ask you, are any of these funny? And your face just gave me the answer to my question. No.
There's only one wedding, and it wasn't even a wedding. And I think you know where I'm going with this. It was a wedding vow renewal with Steph and Triple H.
I see you for what you truly are.
The delivery
no good line
for both of them, and especially Triple H. That was Triple H's one of his best deliveries ever.
Oh God, yeah.
Because he kept that straight face all night long, even though he knew what was going on, and he played Stephanie. I mean, storyline played Stephanie like a cheap fiddle. But anytime there's a wedding, I mean, Billy and Chuck, you know, when Eric Bischoff was disguised as the Justice of the Peace, and you know, Daniel Bryan and AJ Lee, you know, and they're contrived. It's like a dead giveaway. Okay, something bad's gonna happen here. You know, the set's gonna get destroyed and people are gonna get food dumped on them and yada yada yada. That's why the Thanksgiving segments don't interest me anymore. Okay, I've seen food fights so many times. You know, you get all the jobbers from the back and all the people that are never on TV, and you have them throw gravy at each other. Ooh, that's entertainment. You know, and it's because the previous regime thought stuff like that was funny. The slapstick, the vaudeville, you know, they're from that era.
That was good shit, pal.
Yeah. And this might be sacrilegious to say, but even the ceremony that was televised with Miss Elizabeth and Randy Savage, you know, where she opened the box up and the python was inside of it. You know, this is not entertaining to me. It's not funny.
Yeah. Well, that particular wedding was not meant to be funny.
Right. That was meant to be like, you know, Jake the Snake, like kickstarting the feud or whatever.
Right. That was supposed to be Jake and Undertaker versus Randy, but Randy's retired right now, and blah 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 blah. Which led us to this Tuesday in Texas and the big, you know, King Cobra on the bicep and blah 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 blah.
Which at the time scared the crap out of me.
Oh,
Like I was
absolutely.
like, yeah.
Absolutely. But
when it's not blatantly obvious that it's supposed to be funny is when I find it funny. The minute you see, oh, tonight's the commitment ceremony for whomever, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, you know.
All right, so let's ignoring wrestling weddings or any kind of large food settings like Thanksgiving, 4th of July, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's the one thing you can think of that was supposed to be funny that for you was just crickets?
Oh. I don't know if I want to mention it.
Go ahead. You have to. I'm making you.
At the time, I think the powers that be thought it was going to be humorous, and it came off like, who thought this was a good idea? Katie Vick.
I hope to God that wasn't supposed to be funny.
And maybe we should save Katie Vick for the train wrecks of history discussion. But I mean,
oh God,
just like in basically anything from like 2000 on that Vince had a hand in, like, you know, the Vince McMahon appreciation night, where he winds up getting blown up in the limo, and you know, kayfabe blown up in the limo and stuff like that. Some of the DX reunion stuff came, you know, you could tell they were trying to be funny, but it just got less and less funny every time they got back together.
Right.
You know, now the one thing I will give them credit for, and the Lovebird pops for this every time I put it on, is early on when they reunited after I think this was 2006, you know, when they reunited that time, and Vince McMahon's music hits, but Vince didn't come out. Triple H did, with the prosthetic chin and the big nose, and then Shawn Michaels comes out as Shane. That was freaking hilarious.
I'll see you that one, and raise you DX coming out as the Nation of Domination.
No.
Now, hear me out.
It's aged poorly.
Yes, it has aged very poorly. But if you can allow yourself to separate most of what's being said, X-Pac's role in this needs to be completely scrubbed from history, because that was just terrible. But one part of it we can still talk about. and it was funny as crap. The guy they got to play Owen.
Was that Jason Sensation?
Jason Sensation, who did a spot on Owen
like
Hart.
a road sign.
And look how big my damn nose is. What am I? An aardvark? Actually, no, I'll take that back. I will not raise you that one because, yeah, you're right. Looking back at it, it aged.
Now, I'm not going to sit here all holier than thou on my parapet and say, oh, I didn't laugh at it when it first happened, because I was a stupid kid watching the Attitude Era wrestling. Of course, I laughed at it because I didn't realize what was happening. Now I look back on it and I'm like, Jesus, this is
it's like pulling up. It's like pulling up Disney Plus and watching some episodes of the old Muppet Show.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Couldn't get away with that now.
No, you could not. And that's, but again, that's the risk you run. I mean, comedy in and of itself has to evolve. Like the stuff that, my parents thought was funny, I don't have the same tastes anymore. And the things that comics could say in the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s, guys like Richard Pryor and, people like that.
Oh my God, yeah.
You can't, some of them still do, but comedy has gone to a place now where the trick is trying to be funny without being derogatory or denigrating people, and the ones that I like now, somebody like Sebastian Maniscalco does a great job of being funny without being derogatory.
Right.
I think Kevin Hart, to an extent, does a good job of being funny without being derogatory, unless he's making fun of this guy over my left shoulder.
Yes,
but then it's pull no punches.
But let's be honest, that guy making fun of Kevin Hart is 10 times better.
Yes. So we concede, everybody, that this is going to be a matter of taste. I mean, you might pull the stuff up from the people we're talking about, and it might go over like a lead balloon. And we totally get that. Because all of this stuff is a matter of subjective opinion. It's a matter of conjecture.
So, kind of to put a bow on this, you're about to have a conversation with someone that's only watched legitimate pro wrestling. They've never seen anything comedy at all. Where do you start? If we're having one of our old school classic wrestling nights like we used to have, when, the Golden Hurricane herself was much, much, much younger, 5-6 years ago. How are we introducing our buddy Braylon into comedic wrestling if he's never seen any of it?
I'd probably start, because none of their matches, I think, ever lasted longer than 5 minutes. So it's, helpful there. I'd probably start with the Bushwhackers. Just to give you a sense of, we don't have any delusions of grandeur here. We get that we're not, going for the tag championships and stuff like that. In fact, I don't think they ever were the tag champions,
No. But you know who is?
Yeah, reigning and defending, come at us. But I think, I think somebody from today, like an Orange Cassidy, might be appreciated a little bit more. Orange is as good a place to start as any, to understand and like an early Orange Cassidy match versus now, because he's veering a little bit more towards, I want to be taken a little more seriously. Like, I'm going after titles, and I'm trying a little bit harder in the ring. And I know that's not his thing. His thing is to rock you to sleep and then bam, oh my God, he got a pinfall on me kind of thing.
Right. I think for me, I would start Heenan and Monsoon.
Bobby Heenan. I thought you meant in ring versus, and again, there's so many different directions you can go with it. But yeah, Heenan and Monsoon.
I would
even start, Heenan and Jesse the Body.
God, yeah.
Used to go at it.
But I would start anything Bobby Heenan. I would start Bobby Heenan taking bumps in the ring and getting put in a weasel costume. I would I would start with Bobby Heenan at the broadcast booth with Gorilla, SummerSlam 91, WrestleMania 9.
There's two guys I forgot about,
Who?
and I guess this will be my parting shot for this topic. And I'm talking about early on in their careers as a tag team. They were very much embracing the comedy, and that's Edge and Christian. I mean, the 5-second pose and, the ridiculous gear they wear to the ring, like, the huge sunglasses that, went over the top of their head like this, and
Those were, I don't know if you knew this or not, those were legit Oakleys.
I believe it. I mean,
Like,
that's what the skiers wear or something where it like that.
no, they were
No.
just, those sunglasses were meant to be a fashion statement.
Wow.
And it went over like a fart in church.
Because Edge more so than Christian, but both of them had a gift for comedy, unexpected comedy.
Right.
Edge would get zingers in whenever he could, playing kazoos backstage and, everybody's entrance music on the kazoo.
Yeah. Wow, Kurt, you're doing the impossible. You're managing to suck and blow at the same time. Great line, by the way.
We got food poisoning. We can't wrestle Undertaker and Kane tonight.
Oh God, and Christian faking it in the back in the stall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they had the bucket or whatever it was. The thing with Kurt Angle with the cards.
How in the heck have we missed the name Mick Foley?
Wow. Well, thanks for tuning in. You'll never see us on Wrestling with Egos ever again. And I think it's because it's not the first thing I think of when I think of him. I think about all the hardcore stuff, and I think about the sacrifice and the lengths he had to go to. He's another guy who had to embrace the comedy later on.
Yeah.
Because he was just physically unable to go the way he used to go.
But think about this though. Embracing the comedy is what made him the legend that he is. Because he took the hellacious bump from Hell in a Cell. He had an ear ripped off his head. He had those matches with Vader. That amazing match at Mind Games with Shawn. The list goes on and on. But until he started trying to be the corporate champion and referring to Vince as dad and stuff like that.
Mr. Sacco.
Thank you. And then Mr. Sacco.
That informs why now he is able to go on the road and do one-man shows, which we've both been privileged to be in the audience of and speak to the man in an autograph line.
I remember that night because Brian was making fun of me in the parking lot because he drove and I'm riding shotgun and I have the hiccups and I can't stop. Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I laughed too hard. I laughed way too hard. I got to that point where I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. Because he went full bore on some poor kid that wore a TNA t-shirt to the show during the Q&A. And absolutely just unloaded on him. I'm like, oh my God, this is just, this poor guy's getting pistol whipped. But It's a Wonderful Life with The Rock. So funny. Just about anything that the Rock and Sock connection did. Anything that he did with Vince in that run up to being the corporate champion, and then the Rock winning at Survivor Series, and then the ball starts rolling from there. Foley becomes a world champ, and there's Sacco. I still find it funny that two of the funniest things in the history of wrestling happened in that one segment.
The bedpan
And Sacco. I still cannot hear that bunk and just not laugh because the sound cracks me up because I'm like, God.
How about the
To know,
foresight to weave all of that into the same segment? Because the temptation would have been to just leave it alone after Foley's gone.
oh, right. Exactly.
But then to
But
double down and have Austin in the back as an orderly and then turn around and, oh,
yeah,
I'll take it from here, nurse.
but to hear the backstory of while they're lining up the shots for the Foley segment, you just hear thunk thunk in the background, and it's Austin banging the bedpan off his head to find the sweet spot, and then Austin will tell you, and yes, there is a sweet spot to a metal bedpan.
Mm-hmm. If you didn't know, now you know.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm trying to think if there's. All right. Last question. And it might have already been something that we've mentioned, but finality to it all. You need to laugh. What's your go-to?
Oh, dear God. You see, my name's Billy.
Yeah, so the promo we cut on Billy.
Yes, that one every single time. It's been a long time since I've queued it up. That's easily top
Three
three
things.
for me.
Three things for me. Two of them in WWE. One of them being your boy. The Rock concert with Vicky Guerrero always makes me laugh. Bobby Heenan's Hall of Fame speech. And Reginald Johnson Eisenman. Let's bring out Scott Norton.
I just thought of another one.
What?
And you're going to be really impressed when I mention this.
Okay.
Jay Lethal trying to out Nature Boy Ric Flair.
The woo off. Oh my God.
You know what?
That.
If you need a laugh, ladies and gentlemen, you need to find that one.
Yeah.
Because that will just, you'll be on the floor in tears.
How ridiculously talented do you have to can one person be? You're that good in the ring. You do a spot on impression of Macho Man, and you do a spot on impression of Flair.
That's checking all the boxes.
What? But in all seriousness, for me, it's the Rock concert singing "Wonderful Tonight," "Horrible Tonight" to Vicky Guerrero, and Bobby Heenan's Hall of Fame induction. Those are the two that I'm like, yeah, that can.
40.
Bobby Heenan's Hall of Fame induction, 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 Bobby Heenan's Hall of Fame induction. 45. Screw it. I'll get 5 more in next week.
We hope that we were comedic enough for you tonight on this episode of Wrestling with Egos. We certainly try every week.
Right, and we're glad you guys joined us because this type of shows are the discussions that we want to have with you guys. So please hit us up on Twitter at WrestlingXEgos. You can hit Brian up at BigCrigo15. I'm at Rant Mode On. Email the show, wrestlingwithegos@gmail.com. Or if you're watching us on the YouTube, so there's this little thing called a comment section right below us. Why don't you leave a comment and let's start some dialogue about what do you think are the funny moments in wrestling? What are the ones that make you laugh so hard you can't breathe? What are the ones that make you laugh so hard you're about to pee your pants? Let us know because this is the good stuff in wrestling. Yeah, matches are great, but to quote Bobby Heenan, I wanted to be a guy that could bring a little bit of a laugh to a business like this and give it a kick in the pants. And this
it takes all manner of people to make it a success.
Oh yeah. To paraphrase Vince, this is good shit, pal. Before we get out of here, B, any final thoughts?
For once, I have nothing.
Enjoy
Extreme Rules tomorrow night.
Enjoy Extreme Rules. Enjoy White Rabbit. Bob and just remember, boys and girls, Bobby Heenan. The reason Bobby Heenan's voice was like that, the way it was during that one particular segment, as he said, he's got a wedgie.
Oh, no.
What? If that's funny and you know it. Oh, whatever. All right. So for the disembodied voices of Isaac and KD and RJ and, everybody else known to man, for Brian, I'm Patrick. This has been Wrestling with Egos. We'll see you guys next week for episode 137, because this is why we love wrestling. Good night, Mrs. Ochmonic, wherever you are.